We've all been there, sitting in a lecture hall where someone is standing at the front reading off slides, and you're sitting there counting the minutes until it's over. We don't need to get rid of lectures, we need to get rid of bad lectures. So here are 5 rules for designing a lecture that doesn't suck, especially if you want students to learn. Hi, my name is Dr. Cara Benzina. I'm an academic GP based in the United Kingdom, and this channel is dedicated to all things medical education. In this video today, what we're going to do is focus on 5 main principles to help design a lecture that doesn't make your students fall asleep. Let's start with the first one. My first principle is plan with purpose, not just time. What often happens is as you become more senior in your healthcare professional role, you'll probably be asked to contribute to education. Most people don't get the opportunity to learn how to design an effective lecture. And this means if you're given an hour to lecture, do not plan for an hour of talking. There is an idea that each slide should only have one principle in mind, and each slide should reflect about a minute of the time that you're talking. So if you've been given an hour and you've got 100 slides, something is wrong. When we're planning a lecture, we need to respect cognitive load. What is cognitive load? Well, I've got a video on that, but the idea is that people can only engage with and learn so much information within a given space of time. And this means when you're planning and designing your lecture, you need to understand who your learners are. Are they postgraduate resident doctors who are working on the rotation that reflects the subject matter that you're talking about? Are they third-year medical students who have just started their learning? Are they pharmacy students who have never actually stepped on to placement? You need to think about this because you need to consider what information do these learners already have? What type of material have they engaged with? Because that will inform how you decide what to include in your content. And so that means when you're designing your lecture, you want to design it in chunks. And I'll talk a little bit later about why we want to think about chunks, because we want to create space for reflection, but also active learning. So plan with purpose, not with time in mind. My second rule or principle is build in active learning. What is active learning, you say? The clue's in the name. It's learning strategies or techniques that we use to get our learner involved in the lecture. Reading off of slides in 2025 is unacceptable. Gone are the days where medical students would gather around a cadaver in a massive hall and listen to professors or doctors just lecture about things. And why is this something of the past? Because we have so much more evidence about how learners best learn. I'm going to quote some research here. There was a meta-analysis where they looked at traditional lectures versus active learning embedded lectures, and it included more than 200 studies across science, mathematics, and engineering. And what did they find? Active learning methods improve student performance for as much as 6% on assessments. And those lectures that had the traditional didactic way of teaching without active learning were more likely to be associated with failure. So we have evidence that active learning works. Now, there are a bunch of different methods that you could use to incorporate your active learning, and we'll talk about this in a separate video. But for now, what I want to introduce is the principle that when you're designing in chunks, you should basically start with a little bit of a lecture, maybe the first 10 minutes, and then switch it up and create some active learning. You do that for about 10-15 minutes, and then you go back to providing some slides and new information with time for another active learning session and follow up with a summary. So what you want to do is create a lecture that interleaves and allows space for active learning. These are lectures 2.0, or should I say 20.25, because they are the lectures of 2025. We know we need shorter lectures that respect students' attention, but also incorporate active learning strategies. My third rule is make it meaningful. We know that adults aren't interested in info and fact. They want want to know how the information applies to what they have to do. And how do we make it meaningful? Well, by including things like stories, case-based discussions, our own experiences. In order for learners to care about what you're saying, they need to understand why it matters to them. So for example, if you are talking about educating on communication skills training, it's often quite helpful to bring up an example about where communication skills resulted in something going wrong. And that shows the students the importance of making sure that we get it right. My fourth principle, and the one I'm most passionate about, it really gets me going. Clean up your slides. I'll repeat it again, clean up your slides. Stop designing lectures with masses of text. And you'd be like, Cara, what's the problem with this? I'll tell you what's the problem. What will happen if you include a slide with a ton of text is that your learners will spend it trying to read the text rather than listening to you. And if that's the case, it might as well be a PDF rather than a lecture. We know that from things like cognitive load theory, to how students engage with information, to how much people can process new information, that you should only have about one principle per slide. And actually, universities provide guidance on how to create slides that are accessible. And usually it includes a maximum number of words per sentence and a maximum number of lines. So please clean up your slides. And I want to reiterate, this doesn't mean not making them accessible. It means including the masses of text in the lecture notes that you can then provide to the students either before or after the lecture to allow them to follow. But your slides should not be line by line what you're going to talk about. In the bin. À la poubelle. Finally, this is my fifth and final rule. Create space for questions and reflection. There are some learning theorists who believe that if students do not reflect on the learning that they've done, then they haven't actually learned. And I love this quote by Benjamin Franklin, who says, "Never let schooling get in the way of an education." The way that we have designed courses in health professions education, we can promote this idea that it's all about preparing for assessments, passing exams, and making sure that students engage with the single best answer. But in health professions education, we are preparing students for a profession. And that means we need to develop their ability to reflect and ask questions. Now, it means that when we're designing lectures, we really want to create a space where rather with the lecture we're providing a lot of answers, what we want is to promote the generation of questions. And the more questions you get as a result of a lecture, the better off you are. Students should be engaging with the lecture thinking, I'd really love to read about that. Ooh, actually what Dr. Bedzina was talking about, I haven't come across that before, so I definitely want to do some reading on that. We're not just training our HPE student to retain and regurgitate information. We want to train them to think. Here are my top principles or rules to design a lecture that doesn't suck. Number one, start with a plan that respects your learner's attention. Number two, ditch the monologue, get some active learning strategies in. Number three, make it relevant and meaningful. Include stories, case studies, and examples. Students need to understand why it's important, what you're talking about, how it's relevant to them, their development, and their degree. Number four, clean up your slides. Go look at a YouTube video about this. There are hundreds. Clean them up, make them better, do better. Number five, leave space for curiosity, new questions and ideas. Bad lectures are easy. Great lectures take time and effort. I believe in you. You can do it. Let's change the standard of how we lecture. Let's do things differently. I was recently at a conference and one of the students got up and said, we should get rid of lectures. And another professor got up and agreed. And I came in there and I said, no, we shouldn't get rid of lectures entirely. There is a space for them. What we need to do is create greater quality lectures and get rid of the bad ones. So be part of that movement. Do things better, do things differently. If you have some questions or ideas around how to design a great lecture, pop them in the comments below. Otherwise, if you're interested in other ways that you can improve your teaching, check out one of my other videos here. Until next time, where we'll talk about active learning strategies that you can incorporate in your lecture. See you later. Ciao.